Please welcome on stage the moderator for the first plenary Philanthropists, the unifying force in uncertain times, Dindi Nwoneli, founder, Leap Africa, and co-founder, Ace Foods.
Good morning. My name is Ndidi Nwoneli, and thank you, Judy, for those excellent remarks. Please give her another round of applause. I'm delighted to invite back on stage two of our distinguished speakers that you've already heard from this morning, who are going to be sharing with us. But first, we'll start with Yokabi Kenyatta, Director of the Kenyatta Trust. Please join us on stage. Mrs. Tsitsi Masiwa, who doesn't need any introduction, founder, Higher Life Foundation, chair of the Africa Philanthropy Forum. Another distinguished board member of the APF, Mr. Wengo Yebode, who is the founder of Aluko and Oyebode. And last but not least, Dr. Judy Lamini, who needs no introduction. Please give her a round of applause. I just love that I get to speak after Dr. Judy, because she reminded me of what some of my childhood was growing up in eastern Nigeria, in Enugu in particular. Every morning in my high school, a part of my blackboard was devoted to some words. Apartheid is a crime against humanity, don't practice it. All the way in Enugu, every morning, we talked about South Africa, and we were reminded about what was going on in this country. During the apartheid regime, a lot of African countries bonded together to address the crisis. We realized that South Africa was part of us, and that what happened in South Africa affected us. As our musicians composed songs about Mandela, and even as a university student at the University of Pennsylvania, we had a mock ballot box during your elections. We learned the gumboot dance, and all of us learned to sing Sikileli Africa. The fact is that that period showed us the ability to go from potential to reality. We lived it. And that's why I'm so excited to have the panelists today to talk about what role African philanthropists must play in bridging the gap and in unlocking the potential of our continent. Now, one thing all of us have in common in this panel is our passion for education. I don't know if Mosu knew that when she was constituting this panel. All of these individuals are doing phenomenal work on the ground to address the challenges. In spite of a lot of the positive growth, we're in a period of uncertainty in many of our countries. And in fact, in the last year, in South Africa, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Kenya, and Zimbabwe, there have been transitions. In Nigeria, we're getting ready for a very important election, and so there's uncertainty. In this spirit, philanthropists have a role to play in bridging gaps, restoring hope, filling needs, and being catalysts. I'll start with you, Titi. What role in this post-Wakanda era should philanthropists be playing, and are they playing, to move us from potential to reality?
Thank you, Judy. Before I give you my answer, I want to recognize Mrs. Becky. Thank you so much for coming and being with us today. Philanthropy is absolutely at the center of playing a very strategic role, I believe, in getting our communities to be stronger, our voices as mothers, as fathers, as women, men, boys, girls, our youth, to be authentic and to bring the change that we need to see. And without philanthropy recognizing that it's a partnership, the government is absolutely critical. Whether we like their politics or not, we have to find a common platform to work together and to stimulate those important conversations or important strategic actions or initiatives that get the nations to be moving forward. The public sector has to come to the table. It's important for donor community, the models of the past have not worked, they are not working, they are not relevant, they are expensive, and they don't cause the quick changes we need to see on the ground. And I think philanthropy provides an excellent platform to create room for those conversations to take place in a win-win type of environment. Philanthropists play an important role in investing in research and getting the evidence and the data to support new models that can help us to leapfrog as we look at economic and social development. So I cannot see us playing, our own, coming up with our own initiatives that we like or that we feel are important, or things that we are personally passionate about that are disconnected to the issues and the challenges we see in our communities and on the ground. I think I'll stop there.
Thank you. Now I'm coming back to you because Higher Life Foundation over 20 years played a very critical role in Zimbabwe, but also in Southern Africa, at a time when there was a lot of hopelessness around the Zimbabwean story. Can you just give us some insights into your decision to focus on education and how you, in that framework, did partner with civil society, government, and other actors to achieve impact?
So what motivated my giving and my being a philanthropist, first of all, was I didn't know the word philanthropist existed. I had never read a book. I wasn't as aspiring to become one. But what motivated me was just what I saw was happening during my time when I was graduating from university and starting work. I saw a lot of my family die from HIV and AIDS, leave their children behind. I saw our neighbors die. I saw my friends die, people I went to university with, people I knew in high school. And, every week we lived from funeral to funeral. And just the intensity of the pain for me was unbearable. And I'm an active Christian, I'm a believer. So I channeled my pain and brokenness through prayer and began to question why. What could I do with the little that I had to be able to help others? And during that time, my husband was a rising entrepreneur, fighting to get his business established. And in that situation, we found ourselves asking, so if we were to have money, whether it's a little bit or lots of money, what would we do with that money? Because you can only drive one car, sleep in one bed, Once you have a lot, what do you do with what you have? So in the question the answer to my question was very much on look at the challenges that are surrounding you, which was the growing number of orphans in my country. And we felt education was one way in which there were many ways that others began to come in with help, but we felt education was the best way in which we could get the kids to go back to school, but also to build the knowledge to understand what was going on around their lives and how to prevent some of those terrible experiences that they had to suffer because they became orphans. And we started with a little group of children from 12, it grew to 20 to 100, and now we do quite a substantial number of kids.
Thank you, Tsitsi. 250,000 is just a drop in the ocean, right? Please give Higher Life Foundation a round of applause. Because I have seen firsthand the work you do, and I know it's pivotal and catalytic, so thank you. Now, Ms. Kayenta, you have been at the forefront of also leading change in education and transforming communities. Now, beyond starting small initiatives, how can we encourage the creation of lasting social institutions that ensure that our investments are stewarded over time and that they actually make catalytic change happen? And what has your experience been in Kenya through this work you've been doing?
Thank you. I think in order to create lasting impact,
Speak up a little. Much better. Thank you.
I think in order to create lasting institutions, lasting solutions, it's important to first of all ensure that your governance structures are in place, your systems and structures are well laid out. I think it's also critical and also what we're trying to do at the Trust, is to ensure that we also continue to strengthen the partnerships that we have and the people, different organizations that we work with. I think it is critical. Ourselves is mainly a family foundation. So even when you look to the future and how are you going to be there in the decades to come, succession planning has to start taking place now. Bringing on board those who are actually coming after us and who have a heart as well for giving. And again, also very key is also building up maybe endowment funds or whatever to ensure that sustainability is there.
Last night you made a very insightful comment. You said we came in to solve one problem and found there were many others.
Correct.
Now that's a challenge many philanthropists face on the continent because of how dynamic our environments are, but also because of the extent of the need. Can you address how the Cancer Trust has taken on this challenge and what impact you're seeing on the ground?
Right. Now, what we were discussing last night, when the Kenyatta Trust started, it was actually basically dealing with education. Bringing on board children from very disadvantaged backgrounds, and we work with them through university, into university, high school and university. After about a year and some from when we started, we noticed that when they came in, after maybe second term, their grades began to drop. So we wonder what is going on here. So you find that it's normally the first time a lot of them have been away from home, because primary schools, people normally go in your general, locale. And they've come from quite some traumatic things going on at home. So we decided, let us look at what is happening on the home front. And we'll find, maybe it's issues of abuse, when have my siblings eaten, so we said, let us look and see how can we help to empower the families that have been left by the child. So we say we transform lives through education, one family at a time. So by the fact that that child is a member of the trust, is a beneficiary of the trust, we then morphed into creating empowerment, mainly small agricultural projects, another program that has done exceptionally well. So you now find that the homes where these children come from, they are now able to feed their children who have been left at home. They're able to, my mother was ill, they can take her to the hospital. They're able to also work with the people around their communities, because we put them together in groups, self-help groups. They're making savings and continue also to expand those small businesses that they're starting. So you see a real transformation all the way at the village level as well. So exciting things like that.
Well done, well done. So you can see another model where you started with one problem and now you're changing the lives of families. I love that. One family at a time.
At a time.
Thank you for your good work.
Yeah. And again, many programs have also developed the same way as well. Even going back to when we had our post-election violence 2007, 2008. Another program now morphed out of that, what we call our county-to-county program, getting children to go and stay during the holiday with somebody from another ethnic group, another part of the country. And the reports that come back again are amazing. They eat the same food we eat. They also go to the river to get water. Or, they actually start to see themselves as one nation, one Kenya. So we are unifying them from that age, so that hopefully we don't go back to that terrible time that we had at that.
Terrific. So another example of philanthropists as a unifying force and bridge builders. Thank you to the work of the Cancer Trust, and thank you for your leadership. Now, Dr. Leone, you had spoken extensively in your opening remarks about your work through your foundation, but also even your work outside your foundation with other initiatives like the Children's Hospital. And I'm just curious, through your work, how have you seen the collaboration between philanthropists leading to catalytic change. We often talk at the APF about pooling resources, about pooling ideas, and your work is one example of how you've demonstrated that. Can you share some of that?
It's interesting, Titi. There's just one thing I'd like to address before I get there, which was mentioned briefly by Titi. It's interesting because in our African context, we don't view ourselves as philanthropists because we are born to give, live amongst each other. When my neighbor doesn't have something to eat for dinner, that's my problem, we share. So I find, actually, the first time I was invited by APF, I was like, no, but I don't belong there. Because I didn't see what we do as philanthropy. It's what we do, some call it black tax. It's how we help each other within the family, expanded family and communities. And when you think philanthropy, you think it's billions, and I don't have billions, but we give, So with us as a family, because we were raised to give, we were raised to support other kids, and both my husband and I were raised to believe that education is your ticket out of poverty. Education is your liberator. So to us, it has always been important that we will give as far as education is concerned, from even before we had enough for our own family, giving bursaries to kids. And initially we just chose within medicine and chartered accountants because those are our professions. But as we actually got enough to give, as we broadened our horizon in terms of this philanthropy, we actually then increased it to actuaries, to engineers, to people within the tech space. And we have actually seen how collaborative work with other people who do similar work has actually added impact. Because one of the things that was said by Ms. Kenyatta was how you actually initially think, okay, you'll give a bursary, they'll go to varsity, they'll sort themselves out, and then you don't understand the challenges they bring with them to this university. Because as I always say, the universities that we have, at least in my country, are geared to an upper class, middle class child who comes from parents that are educated. It doesn't cater for a child from the rural areas who doesn't have parents that are educated. So they actually fail. That's why you actually find that in the first year. So you need that support. And you collaborate with institutions like Tutuga Bursary Fund, which is actually a SAICA initiative, which gives more than just funding. It actually has a support system for the students. There's Umthombo Bursary Fund. We support Umthombo, but they bring the other element too, which is just support the social side of things, the emotional side and psychological side, which is very important. So we've learned that when you collaborate, your rent, it becomes multiplied, but more importantly, you also address the other issues within the ecosystem that affects the kids that we're trying to support.
Terrific. And now, through your work, have you seen any challenges around collaboration? And how have you overcome them? Sometimes the issue of egos and logos. And many organizations say, I don't want to be on the same platform with this lady. I don't want to be on the platform with that person. So how have you been able to overcome that in your work?
It's been amazing. I've actually seen the issue of egos at different levels. One just quick example is one institution that shall remain nameless, where I was pushing for black actuaries, for the support of black actuaries, because I don't know about other parts of the world. Here, there's a serious problem in terms of just black actuaries. One, the profession was unknown 20, 30 years ago, introducing the profession, and also the rigor of the understanding of mathematics and so forth. So I was pushing that. I've identified an organization, an NGO, that if we find that NGO, they have a track record, they can assist. But we couldn't agree because the fund or the initiative must have my name. If I put the funds there, they are not going to recognize the name as the name of the fund. So you get those things. I understand though, as someone in business, because philanthropy, or CSI as you call it, corporate social investment, is also a way of PR, public relations, of selling your brand. But there comes a time where the need is so big that the egos and the PR is not as important as sustainability and changing the status quo.
Thank you. You said it too well. Impact overrides egos and logos any day. And so that's the focus. Thank you. Now, Mr. Yebode, you wear many, many hats. Businessman, lawyer, investor. And we were talking yesterday about the difference between philanthropist and social investor. I think you classify yourself more as a social investor. What role do you feel philanthropists or social investors can play in changing public policy and taking a lot of the good work that these three ladies are doing and making sure that it's entrenched in systems? And have you seen some very practical examples in Nigeria?
Well, you know, again, to use Nigeria as an example, public policy, sometimes there's a huge disconnect in terms of policy formulation and the problems on the ground. And I think the dilemma that most of us have in Africa is how Africa is a continent of great opportunity, but also of great, tremendous problems. Governments tend not to recognize the problems, or tend not to focus on the problems, or they don't want to give it any prominence because of their policies. The role of philanthropists and social investors is essentially to focus on these areas, and by the way, they're not narrow areas. We were talking earlier about how education is a key problem that we all have on the continent. But when you look across issues around in a country like Nigeria, in the northeast of Nigeria, around ITPs, and every time you look, they're getting bigger. Except that governments tend not to want to focus on the size of internally displaced people because of the attention that they get. What I tend to see is that the role that philanthropists then have to play is essentially to step into that reach. And one of the things that impresses me the most is that increasingly with wealth being created on the continent, we're starting to see significant contribution by African philanthropists. And so when you look at a country like Nigeria, a lot of work's been done around education and leadership, because we've identified that if we're going to get ourselves out of the ignorance and the poverty, education is one of those ways. But when you look across, there are problems almost in every area. There's problems in healthcare delivery, problems around displaced people, problems around education, and for that reason, I think that our work is cut out for us, in that almost in every area that you look, there's almost a need that needs to be fulfilled, and the opportunities therefore are significant.
Now, when you think about your life, and I'm sure many of the philanthropists on this platform share that, there's often tremendous pressure on you to support many causes. You don't have a personal foundation, but you invest. How do you know when to say yes and when to say no? When to lend your name to a cause and when to separate yourself or distance yourself? How do you set boundaries?
Look, I think, and I think Judy's made the point. One of the things about our culture is that we give. And so from a very early age, what you tend to find is that, I remember sitting, as a young boy, people would come from the village, and my father kept a diary. And every time you looked at his diary, he made copious notes around, he gave somebody £5, he gave somebody 12 shillings, and it was clear that, these were people who needed help. And so once you come from a culture of giving, I think it's not difficult to make a determination as to what you think the gaps are in society. I have made a determination that I think that the gaps for me are around education and leadership. And the reason for that is that I think that when you look across the continent, people tend to vote for the wrong reasons. They vote ethnicity. They vote religion. They tend not to vote for good leaders. And the reality is, even for those of us that are educated, we tend to vote for people that we wouldn't hire. So my sense is that once we've identified that education is a gap, and once you've also identified that side by side with education being a gap is leadership. And if we're going to close these gaps, I think of it as those are the sweet spots for me. We all can't be Bill and Melinda Gates, where you take a look at their range of issues, whether it's financial inclusion, or it's malaria, or it's neglected tropical diseases. The reality is that on the continent, there are so many issues, but you do need to narrow down and need to focus and need to concentrate resources where you think that they're needed.
Thank you very much. Being strategic about your investments is the core of our work at the Africa Philanthropy Forum. We're going to open up now to questions. We only have about 10 minutes. So if you have a question, please raise your hand, introduce yourself, and direct it to the panelists. And we have microphones going around. Any questions? Yes, we have one all the way at the end.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Mohammed Razak from Bokamoso Impact Investment. And my question goes to the last speaker on the panel. He mentioned how government, have shied away from taking acts and responsibility for which, they are supposed to. And that the philanthropist's role is to fill in these gaps. So my question is, are we not perpetuating the irresponsibilities of government? So things they're supposed to do, we let them get away with and go and fill it. Have we grown despondent, said that so the government is a lost case? Or are there ways we think we can work with governments to commit resources in areas that are needed? Thank you.
Mr. Yebele, go ahead.
Look, the answer is yes and no. Are we letting governments come out of their responsibility? The answer is yes. Does that relieve of responsibility? No. The reality is that if we fix the leadership conundrum that I talk about, we won't constantly have to deal with these kind of issues. But also let's remember that in some of the countries on the continent, resources are not there to deal with some of these issues of war, of famine, of desperation. And I think that our role as philanthropists is really to identify what those problems are, and particularly on the continent, that we do not leave these problems to foreign investors to plug for us, because we're closer to the problems. We recognize what needs to be achieved and resolved, governments come and go. The expectation as we get more socially aware and as we educate our people is that we won't continue this cycle into the future.
Thank you. And just to also mention that there are African philanthropists who are funding governance and good government issues. Mo Ibrahim Foundation is well known, and they partner with the African Philanthropy Forum. And even in Nigeria, Anna Peter Science focuses on governance. And I think there's a role for philanthropists to play in directly ensuring that our governments are held accountable and they do the right thing. Any other questions? Yes. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Colleen Dutoy. I am now an independent advisor, although I think that's a bit presumptuous. I work independently in the philanthropy and civil society space. There's something in this session that has really pressed a hot button for me, and that is the issue of calling African giving black tax. So I don't have a question, but I have a very respectful suggestion around collaboration by this forum and beyond. and that is that people need to work together around whether it's advocacy, policy making, to change this perception of tax, of African giving as a tax. Let's face it, nobody likes the tax man. And there have been other terms that have been used, like Ubuntu, like help, which was in one of the famous research projects about African giving. So with respect, I wanted to make that suggestion.
Okay, thank you very much for that suggestion. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Keith Chibirango. I work with Save the Children in UK, although I come from Uganda, so I am kind of wearing both hats. My question is to the panelists. Do you see a role of global entities? Do you see the role of global philanthropists in what we are trying to achieve here? And what are those ideas of collaborations between global philanthropists and those in Africa?
All right, can I ask Titi to respond? Because I know you've been partnering a lot with global philanthropists as well.
For me, there's a role for everybody to play. The global philanthropists are extremely important because they have much bigger budgets than we have, and also they have a lot more experience in structured and strategic giving. However, we also recognize the way they are structured. They have a lot of tax incentives, encouragement, and lots of other things that they get in return for their giving. So the partnership is important, and it is very helpful in terms of recognition of what each party brings to the table, what the strengths of each other's roles. But I think for the African philanthropists, the most important thing we bring to the table is the connected we have with communities. Because all of us, we are coming from, we know what a distressed community looks like, how it lives, how it eats. Some of us grew up in those kind of communities. So the partnership has to exist. I get concerned, especially when the global partners generally tend to look for local but foreign-run organizations. They find it difficult to invest in a local and non-NGO that is run by a local person. We need to break those, I think, barriers wherever they emanate from. It's very important. And also pulling our resources together. I think there's a growing number of high net worth individuals, growing between 27 and 35%. So there are lots of people who are getting into wealth very quickly on the continent, and that also have come again from these environments and this type of communities. So the opportunities to work together and to learn on how to be effective and to leapfrog some of the problems that they had that they took long to resolve are important as we collaborate.
Thank you, Ms. Nasima. Okay, take these last two questions. Please take the microphones over really quickly. Okay, go ahead, sir.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Camille Olufobi, and I run an organization called the Most Influential People of African Descent. And we focus a lot of our work on people of African descent around the world, 40 and below. The tendency with philanthropy, you tend to think when I am, well established and I have a lot of money, that's when I can start to give back. So my question is very specific to each and every one of you on the panel. What is the one thing that you can share for the next generation coming behind you in what you know now about philanthropy, so we can get them started early? So it would be good to hear from you.
Okay, can I just take the two other questions and then we'll do those as our closing? Okay, go ahead, please.
Good morning. My name is Rudo Kwaramba Kayumbu, and I work for the One Campaign. And mine is a challenge, really, to say that how can the Africa Philanthropy Forum and all those who are high net worth givers invest in creating a giving culture in the next generation? Because I think a lot of us in a particular age bracket understand the need to look out for our neighbors. But the next generation of young people I fear is highly selfish. So how do we create a vehicle where we can actually generate a culture of giving at a small scale? So set up funds nationally where people can contribute towards a cause, particularly education, because it does pull people out of ignorance and poverty. So how can they be a platform for small-scale giving that people become accustomed to even before they make the big money, and it becomes a culture that is built into the next generation?
Terrific, thank you. Go ahead, last question.
Morning, my name is Lade Araba from Convergence Finance. Ms. Kenyatta talked about setting up endowment funds for continuity within the schools where you're active. And Ms. Masiyiwa also talked about the role of philanthropists in promoting research and innovation and supporting science and technology. So a lot of you are working at the early, childhood education stage and going into high school. But then at the tertiary education level within the African continent, we don't have a lot of endowment funds. When you look at the US, the Harvards and the other institutions, even not the Ivy Leagues, they have billions of dollars that have been donated by philanthropists, and they're utilizing these resources to provide scholarships, but also to invest heavily in science research, development, and technology innovation. And a lot of the patents that are owned globally actually come from these institutions. So within the African context, in your opinion, what can we do to get more African philanthropists to support these types of endowment funds so that African institutions are also able to contribute more to global scientific research and basically come up with the types of innovations that are not only going to solve challenges locally, but that are also contributing to the global economy?
Thank you, great questions. Now I'm going to challenge the panelists to answer the questions and then provide your closing remarks at the same time. So let's start with Ms. Kayanta.
Thank you.
I think that two of the questions were relating to the next generation of givers. We have, well, let me give my own example. With our children, once they finish and they are in the workspace, we tell them they also have to do a give back, where they give a certain amount, even just a small bit. Even if they get together, they educate one child, they do, like that. So they have to then also be responsible to bring up somebody else. Similarly with the ladies who are within the program. But over and above that, beyond that, even going to what your question is, we give because we saw it being done. If we continue to do that, we're the example, I think, even for the next generation. Are they selfish? Yes, they tend to be exceptionally selfish, this new lot. And they want something, what's in it for me? How do I benefit? And the beauty of us coming together and meeting like this and sharing these concerns, I think it's important because we need to take this so-called philanthropy now to the next level. We need to put proper structures around it. We need to incentivize, if so to say, people to give. We need to encourage our governments to, even give tax breaks or, something, so that people give in a more structured way, so that it's not so ad hoc. People are very good at coming and rallying around a cause. Drought. We have Kenyans for Kenyans. And we have this thing of M-Pesa. You pay bill, somebody, namely to Red Cross, they go and give. It is a cause. It's a disaster that has happened at this time. People rally together. But if it needs to be something that is sustained in a proper way, and how you see it in the global arena, even if you give $10 or whatever, you can write it off your tax. I think those sort of structures are very critical for the future and for the proper establishment of now philanthropic, to really get it entrenched onto the continent. I think that's the next stage. That's where we need to take it. That's what I believe.
Thank you. Mr. Masiwa.
I'll answer all three questions with one answer. I think there's no one size fits all, there isn't one solution, but I think a low-hanging fruit for us is teach from a very early age. There's no reason why giving should not be a subject, philanthropy should not be a subject, social responsibility issues should not be a subject. From pre-primary school to primary school to secondary school to high school to university, departments within university. The education system hasn't, syllabi hasn't changed much. Geography is still geography, history is still history. You want to do sciences, you must pass physics, chemistry, maths. We need to think outside the box and reconfigure how we educate in the curriculum. And through that, I think we'll fit in and include a lot more other important subjects that we are not teaching. Education, I think, is at the core if you want to shift mindsets and shift paradigms.
Thank you. Mr. Ibode.
Look, I think it's important that that we focus attention that sometimes it's not really about money. It's about giving time. It's about support. It's about collaboration. And so I wouldn't isolate philanthropy around how much money do I have to give to a cause. I think that we should encourage people to share, and more especially around their experience and around their ability, even if it is just to mentor the younger generation. I think it's important to be strategic in giving. And being strategic in giving is really just saying that, the little that I have, can I just focus my attention on what are those gaps in my society that I think that's particularly important. And I've made the point, I have zeroed in on education and leadership, whether it's work with ALA or work with Teach for All and Teach for Nigeria. Finally, I think it's also around those of us who have a little bit more to give about building institutions and making sure that they're sustainable. I think that's the message of the APF is, can we organize ourselves better such that what we do, we are able to collaborate with institutions, collaborate with other philanthropists, such that we target the needs and that we make them more sustainable.
Thank you very much. And last but not least,
the only thing I would add, my colleagues have actually said it all, but the thing that I would like to add as we conclude is that our communities are a reflection of our families. What we do when we raise our kids is actually what they bring out to the societies, because each one of us is responsible within our families. So sustainability is actually created in your home. When we formalized our PBO as a family, we ensured that the kids are actually also trustees. We go with them to give, and hopefully if we're still around, we'll take the granddaughter too. But the other thing which I completely agree with is that it's not just money, it's giving of your time, it's giving of what you know. When I was a medical student, we were good at math, obviously, that's why we could get into medical school. We didn't have anything, we didn't have money, we just had our brains. So we thought, how do we use this for the good? So we identified schools that we could go to over weekends to just teach them math, because it's such an important thing. So for young people, you do what you can with what you have. It doesn't have to be money. And I have a very different experience with young people in their 20s, in their 30s. I have been very impressed with them, actually. I've met people. I've met young people who actually have started a bursary fund, and they've said, we actually put 1,000 Rand, 2,000 Rand every month into a fund. We've identified kids that we fund at university. I've had young people come to me and say, we actually want to put a child at your school. identify, do the everything, we'll just put the money and we'll pay for them. I've had young people coming and saying, I'm an actuary. I'd be happy to come to your Fisher Nation schools to teach. I'd be happy to come and address and motivate the kids. So we've done a good job, therefore, as parents, because young people are quite impressive. They give and they care.
Thank you so much. Just to round up, just a few words. I think we've taken away some very important insights from this panel. The importance of being strategic, being visionary, collaborating, pushing boundaries, investing in education, investing in our countries, and also investing in the next generation. I'll encourage some of you to bring your children next time to the next APF. We have some second gens here who are already philanthropists who are making us very proud, the Masiwa children, and I'm sure there are some other children represented here. I want to end with a quote from Nelson Mandela. It says, sometimes it falls upon a generation to be great. You can be that great generation. Let your greatness blossom. I think for us, Africans for Africa, we have to be that great generation that bridges the gap between potential and reality. We have very good examples of people who are leading that and showing us what it means to be great. I commend you for your work. Thank you for inspiring us. And I challenge all of us in this room to rise up and be that great generation. Thank you very much.